The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show. I hope everybody is having a great time and having a great week. Thursday night tonight, almost the weekend. All right, let's see. I think we got quite a lot to talk about today. A lot of stuff going on in the world. Lots of stuff for future shows. Just a lot of stuff happening. Best Friend Hank, thank you. Best Friend Hank reminds me that you can use the Super Chat to support the show. You can use the Super Chat to ask questions. Use the Super Chat. Ali has a goal. Goal is $600 a night to raise $600. The last 3 shows, she's achieved that goal. Don't let her break the streak that she has going on. She's got 3 shows. Yes, value for value. We're traders. You get benefit out of the show. Some of you hear it every single night and stay on for an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes, as we talk. It's basically, to a large extent, me talking. It's a lot of energy, a lot of effort. The value I receive back are the Super Chats and your support on YaronBrookShow.com/support, on Patreon, of Subscribestar, and on Local. So I appreciate it. Hopefully you guys appreciate the amount of effort dedicated to what you're doing, and hopefully to what I do, and hopefully I am providing you with real value that you appreciate. And if so, show that appreciation in the in the Super Chat. Wow. Let's see. We've got Eddie from Barcelona. Wow, we got somebody from Barcelona on. It's late at night in Barcelona. What are you doing up, Eddie? You should be in bed. You should be going to bed. All right, I see I've got a question from Frank on something that I didn't respond to last time. Sorry about that, Frank. I will get to it. I've copied it over, so I will get to it when I answer the Super Chat questions. Thank you, Jonathan, as always, for your support. I really, really appreciate it. And let's see. Yeah, we're up to $15, so we've got a way to go to get to the $600. But as you know, no more raising money until the end. That's the deal we have. But your part of the deal is making it up to $600, so I don't have to bug you and cajole you and really, really ask nicely and everything. Go Red Sox, absolutely. It was great to see the Red Sox beat the Yankees. That is always a good thing. And now we need to go to the World Series. Why are you guys getting off on David French and Jonah Goldberg? What the hell? God. You don't have any better enemies to go after? 2 of the saner, nicer people out there in the political world. All right, let's jump in. First, a Facebook story. So Tuesday, I did this very long analysis of Facebook and what was going on, and with the whistleblower and the leaks and the kind of fallout from all of that. I thought it was a pretty good show. So hopefully, if you haven't watched it, you will go back to watch it, because I thought we covered a lot of ground and it was good stuff. Anyway, yesterday and today we've gotten Zuckerberg's response to the whole leaking whistleblower stuff, to the demands that Facebook be more socially responsible. We got his response to the idea of Facebook caring less about profit. So first of all, Zuckerberg told us, not me, the press. He put out a press release, a statement, that it's not true that Facebook cares about profits more than about people, whatever the hell that means. Not at all. They're not interested in profits. They really like people, and they really care about people, and they really want to help people, and they really want to be nice to people, and they want you to know that they really want to be nice to people, and it's not Zuckerberg begs about profits. This is why they get into trouble, because of course it's about profits. Just admit it and be proud of it. Profits are a good thing, not a bad thing to run away from. Profits are a sign, a measurement of what, Yaron? What are they a sign of? They're a sign of value creation. So we will not change the world until our leaders, our business leaders, start standing up proudly for the profit motive, for profit, for making money. Stop apologizing for it. Stop pretending that you're not doing it. So that's the first thing about Zuckerberg. The second is, and the main part of his letter is something he repeated, something he said before. Basically, Zuckerberg's response to criticism is this. Look, obviously, you guys don't like what we do. We don't know how to fix it. We don't know how to do better. So the only way to solve the problem, the only way to solve this problem of, I don't know, polarization and people living in bubbles and fake news and misinformation and teenage girls not liking their bodies or whatever on Instagram. The only way to solve this problem is for the government to regulate it. Literally, this is Zuckerberg's response. Zuckerberg, basically in the letter response to the whole issue of the whistleblower, is begging, asking for government to step in and regulate what he does, control what he does. Because he can't. Because he doesn't know how to. Because he's getting conflicting messages from different regulatory agencies, from the left and the right, from Democrats and Republicans. Because that conflicts with the profit motive. And he doesn't know what to do. So he wants government to step in and regulate him. Now, this is just unbelievable to me. He was a smart, intelligent, knowledgeable man who runs a massive company and from every indication in the world does a phenomenal job at it. Smart, went to Harvard. And he really believes that his company and the world are better off by being regulated? Yes, I know that the argument is that he can afford the regulations, but his competitors can't. But does he realize that regulations would take the fun out of it? Does he realize that when regulations start, they never end? Does he realize that once those regulations start, a company which he has insisted on maintaining voting control of will no longer be his? It'll be the regulators. Yeah, he can pretend it's his. He can pretend it's his as long as he plays nice and as long as he plays by the regulation. But he'll discover very quickly it's not his. not his to make decisions, not his to guide, to shape, to form once he succumbs to those regulations. Regulations would be a slow, not an immediate death, a slow death, a slow suicide, since he's asking for the regulations of Facebook and Zuckerberg. But this is the position the state places businessmen. They bring in front of them, they scold them, they wag their fingers at them, they demand results, they demonize them, they threaten them with all kinds of things. And some of these businessmen, morally weak, as many of them are, say, okay, you win, regulate me, please, just get off my back. And what they don't realize is once they're regulated, they'll never be off your back. You're basically hitching them to your back. You're basically now going to drag them on your back forever. So it is I think it's a sad state of the world where this is the approach businessmen take. It's time for them to stand up and defend themselves, to be proud of their achievements, proud of the money they make, tell government to get off, leave them alone, go away. Maybe then we have a chance. Maybe then we have a chance. That's what it's going to take. To change the culture, it's going to take businessmen doing exactly that. And until they do it, the culture won't change. The culture needs leadership. The leadership at this point will not come from the intellectuals. And maybe the few good intellectuals can influence businessmen because they, in America, not in Europe, not in Asia, not anywhere else, but in America, they, the businessmen, can actually have a massive cultural impact. We still admire business. We still admire profit making to some extent in this country. All right. So just wanted to put that in, not in the title, but I thought it was important to talk about it. Emiliano, I'll take this question because it's on the topic. If profits are measurement of value created, is it the wealth of murderous drug traffickers a sign they've created value on drugs, a form of suicide? No, but drugs are not a market, right? Drugs don't appear in the market. The whole point is that you couldn't make huge amounts of profits if drugs were legal, as they should be. In a true free market where drugs are legal, there is no profitability to them. They become a commodity. It's easy to make cocaine. It's easy to make pot. It's easy to make heroin. Anybody can do it. Competition drives profits basically as low as to zero. The only reason they have high profits is because the government is giving them a monopoly that they have gained by force. They get rewarded, quote, rewarded, for taking on the risk of engaging in illegal activities. If drugs were legal, the risk would be zero, the profits would be zero. Emiliano asked, what about casino? A casino provides entertainment. Now, it's true that from an objective perspective, the value you receive, or some people receive at a casino, is not a real value. But it is to the people playing. You, from the side, can say, you're ruining the life, this is not good for you. But for them, from their perspective, from their personal values, this is a value. So yes, the casinos are creating the casinos are creating a value for the people using it. It might be, from our perspective, from a philosophical perspective, a bad value, a disvalue, an anti-life value. but it's still a value to the people using them. So, and indeed, in a rational society, there would be a lot fewer people gambling. Regularly gambling as an addiction, gambling against the casino constantly is non-rational. It's anti-rational. You could go on and on. Tobacco is the same thing. Rational people choose to smoke. Now, you could say, it's not good for you, don't do it, it's irrational, but they're getting a value from it. You don't get to dictate other people's values. And the market is not there to judge. This is rational, this is irrational. That's for philosophers, and that's for moralists, and that's for educators, and that's for intellectual leaders to say, hey, you shouldn't smoke. Hey, you really shouldn't take drugs. Hey, you shouldn't go to prostitutes. Hey, you shouldn't use whatever, tobacco. And individuals, morality is the responsibility of the individuals. But you cannot say that the company is not providing something of value to the person. You might say the person is wrong to value this thing. But economics is not normative in that sense. Economics does not tell people these are the values you should have. That's to some extent. In the end, I think marketing does that, and better companies and competition does that to some extent. The market says, here's stuff you might want, or things that people have always wanted and maybe shouldn't want. Here's stuff you want. We'll provide it for you for a price, value for value. It's still value creating. In the broad sense of value is that which one acts to gain or keep, not value in the sense of pro-life, that you should rather than do act to gain or keep. Right? The market does not provide you the should. Best Fred Hank, thank you for the 1999. 1999 is a good number. I mean, if we got enough people doing 1999, we could get to that $600 goal that Ali has. Doesn't have to be in big chunks. All right. Let's see. All right, let me do this. Let's answer these two Super Chat questions. One by Frank, who says, I missed it last time. I can't remember. And one by Michael, who put $20 onto it. Just to encourage you to do $20 questions because I'll answer them quicker. And again, you'll show the support and we'll move forward. Frank says, Paul Krugman said that 3.5 trillion is only 3% of US GDP. Is that true? What does that even mean? No, I mean, US GDP is 21 trillion. 3.5 trillion is 16.67%. I think I did that earlier. So I don't know where the 3% comes from. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 1% would be, I don't know. 3% doesn't make any sense. It is true that the 3.5 trillion is not spent all at once, it's over time. So, maybe annually it's only 3% of GDP. But yes, I mean, the question asked Paul Krugman is, okay, it's 3% of GDP. Is 4% okay? 5? 10? 12? 13? What's the right percentage to increase spending, right? Government is already spending a huge percentage of GDP. How much more should it spend? How does it make sense? So this is the problem that, Krugman he makes stuff up. Keynes approved of deficit spending only in times of recession, We're not in a recession right now. We did the deficit spending last year based on John Maynard Keynes in order to get out of the recession caused by COVID, caused by government shutting down the economy with the pretense of COVID. Now there's no recession. Why are we spending even more deficit spending now? How does that make any sense even in a Keynesian framework? It doesn't matter. Paul Krugman has never seen government spending he didn't like. He always complains it's too little. The Obama stimulus was too little. The Trump stimuluses were too little. The Biden stimulus is too little. He always wants more and more and more government because more and more government bring more and more power, control to the people he wants to have power and control. So, no, what we should be doing right now is shrinking government spending significantly to get to the point where we can pay back government debt and to limit government's intervention in our lives. Government intervention in our lives is measured by the size of the government, by how much they spend. The more they spend, the more they're intervening. Maybe there's certain areas like the military and stuff, but even there, we know that some of the money goes to NSA, which is spying not just on terrorists, but also something else. So it's a good measure. Size of the government is a good measure of how much interference there is. We should be shrinking because government is doing a gazillion things it shouldn't be doing. It has no moral, ethical, political right to do. Oops, what did I do? All right, just one more point on Zuckerberg. Of course, regulations help the big players and hurt the little guys, but I genuinely don't believe that is what motivates Zuckerberg. I think what motivates Zuckerberg is he wants guidance. He wants the government to make up their mind. He's confronted with two political parties lashing at him from different perspectives. He's confronted constantly by antitrust threats and all kinds of threats. Just give me a code, give me a set of regulations that I can run my business based on. I don't think he's saying it because, that way none of my competitors will ever be able to compete with me. I mean, maybe I'm naive about what goes on inside Facebook, but I just don't think, I think he's genuine. He's saying, trying our best. What's going on is it's really, really hard to figure out how to best run a social media platform. This is not easy. These decisions are complicated. Nothing we do seems to satisfy you. Okay, tell us what to do. And hey, if you're going to tell us what to do, let me give you some advice. These are the kind of ways, these are the kind of things we'd like you to do it. Best Fed Hank is going from $19.99 to $4.99 and now $1.99. Is this a reflection of your view of the show today? I don't know. I'm starting to take it personally. Anyway, thank you. Best Fed Hank has already contributed quite a bit of funds for the show. All right, one last question, and then we're going to go to the next topic, which is the coming Civil War. Michael asks, I suspect there will be civil war, after the dollar collapses, followed by quasi-fascist takeover. I don't think we'll tolerate forming fascism, we'll tolerate complete fascism, but watered down fascism, people in the West will get behind. All right, hold that question, and let's talk about the coming Civil War. So, massive amount of writings, I'd say, coming out primarily from the right in the last 2-3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, about the potential of a civil war. And not just civil war, but secession. A lot of talk about secession, a lot of serious people talking about secession, so not just kind of a wacky type thing, but serious reflections about secession. Splitting the country into 2 or 3 or 5 different political entities, units, and a lot of people talking about this. But beyond that, the fear that this is that what's going to cause this is a constitutional crisis. And we'll talk about the kind of constitutional crisis they are worried about. But behind this is a poll that came out of the University of Virginia. That is polled. Don't know how many people, but a good size poll that asked. We'll talk about the poll in a minute in terms of kind of the detailed questions that they asked, because I think it's interesting. A lot of what they have in there is interesting. But here's the bottom line of the poll. The bottom line is a majority of Trump voters, 52%, and a strong minority of Biden voters, 41%, strongly or somewhat agree that it's time to split the country. So we have today over half of Trump voters and over 40% of Biden voters agreeing either strongly or somewhat that it's time to split the country. And this is probably a pretty shocking result. I doubt that even before or leading up to the Civil War, you would have got a result like this. This might be the period in American history with the most division, with the most since the Civil War, hatred of one tribe against another. It is truly shocking. The extent to which people have given up on America, both on the left and on the right, it seems like more so on the right than on the left, and are demonizing the other party as so evil, corrupt, and wrong that there is nothing to be done but to split the country up or to engage in kind of have civil war, whose results will be a split. So I want to dig a little bit into these Virginia polls. Again, I don't want to. So I'm gonna go over the poll. You know what? Maybe I'll do like I did last time, and put the poll up on the screen so you guys can see it. It'll be easier that way. Let's see if I can quickly do that. Let's see. Yeah, I think so. All right. Hopefully you guys can see that. All right. So the poll starts by asking Biden voters and Trump voters about specific, if you will, policy issues, right? And this is somewhat agree and agree strongly. So this is all the people on a particular side of an issue. So these particular questions relate to the infrastructure bill that is going through Congress, right? So improve the electric grid, overwhelming majority, somewhat agree and agree strongly. The Biden voters more so, after all, it's a Biden bill, but on the Trump voters, you get strong agreement on this. On the issue of modernizing drinking water, strong agreement between Republicans, Biden voters, and Trump voters, let's call them that. Investing in construction, roads, bridges, so on, strong agreement on both Biden and Trump voters. Raising income taxes in American households with income above $400,000. Here you start seeing a difference, right? But in both cases, Biden and Trump voters, a majority believes that, they somewhat agree that taxes should be raised on the rich. With Biden voters, it's an overwhelming majority, it's 90%. Trump voters is still over 50%. Over 50% of Trump voters want to raise taxes on the rich. Investing in universal pre-kindergarten for all American children. A major program of the progressive left. Turns out almost 60% of Republicans, not Republicans, Trump voters, agree. And 90% of Biden voters agree. Increasing funding for rural broadband access. over both parties. Here you get a sense that Trump voters are, to a large extent, rural. A lot of voters support this on both 89 and 74. Creating a national paid family leave program. Yeah, here the gap is big, but still true. The Trump voters, over 50% of them, agree that we should create a national paid family leave program. Right? Making community college free for all Americans. Here you get a bigger difference, less than 50%, but still 43%, a big minority of Republicans or Trump voters think this is okay. Legislation supporting unions. Banning right to work. 42% of Trump voters want to ban right to work laws. 42%. 78% of Biden voters. So when you look at this, your conclusion has to be that the overwhelming majority of the American people are left of center on economic issues, on economic/social issues like preschool education. And that the difference between Biden and Trump voters is not that big. They basically agree. Whoops, sorry. Whoops, scroll down. Oh, I see. You guys were behind. There you go. There's the investing in preschool, and there's the rest. There's vast agreement on these issues. And yet remember, 52% of Trump voters and 42% of Biden voters want to split the country. Over what? They don't disagree that much. All right, let's look now at how they view each other. These voters who don't disagree that much on economic issues. How do they view each other? What is their perspective on one another? I've come to view elected officials from the opposite party as presenting a clear and present danger to American democracy. 80% of Biden voters, 84% of Trump voters. So the other party, even though I agree with much of their program, they're a clear and present danger to American democracy. I'm concerned that you or someone close to you, concerned that you or someone close to you might experience personal loss or suffering due to the effects of the opposite party's policies in the future. 80% Biden voters, Trump 82. Despite the U.S.'s Constitution's First Amendment protection of free speech, some media sources on the extreme left or right, depending on who was answering the question, have become so untruthful that they should be censored. They should be censored. The state should intervene to stop the spreading of dangerous lies. 78% of Biden voters, 73% of Trump voters. In other words, well over 70% of American people believe that it's okay to censor news as long as it comes from the other side of the political aisle. Republicans, Democrats, depending on who's answering, want to eliminate the influence of progressive traditional values in American life and culture. Progressive or traditional, depending on what side you're answering. 78% Biden voters, 87% Trump voters. The conservative mainstream media, conservative or mainstream media, depending on how you're answering, might as well be part of the Republican Democratic Party. 77% Biden, 88% Trump. And look how many people have a strong view about this. 50 and 71. And same about, by the way, about censorship. 46 and 47% have a strong view of this. I believe the Americans who strongly support the opposition party have become a clear and present danger to the American way of life. And this tells you why we might be heading to a civil war. 75% of Biden voters, 78% of Trump voters. Most Democrats, Republicans no longer believe in the ideas that make America great. 72% of Biden voters, 87% of Trump voters. There's no real difference between Republicans and fascists, Democrats and socialists. 56% of Biden voters here, Biden voters are more generous. 76% of Trump voters, 54% strong, would consider voting for any opposition party candidate as being disloyal to the people I care about. See, it's about loyalty, over 50% of both parties. So there is a massive, massive, massive distrust, hatred, resentment, and a willingness to use the state to implement it. You've got all the makings here. Well, I would argue for civil war, but really for authoritarianism. Because here's the interesting thing about all this, right? They agree on the issues. So what you need is somebody both sides can admire, both sides can respect. Somebody can unite them over the issues. The issues are all statist. The issues are all fascist, if you will. The issues are all expansion of the state, reduction of individual liberty, censorship. And it's spooky that they agree that the United States should be like Europe. But the left thinks this is great, we need to do it. And they identify as Europe. The right, on the other hand, identifies it as America. They are so delusional that they don't even realize that what they're actually arguing is the same as the left and turning the country into Europe, abandoning America. Now let's talk about commitment to, in the poll they call it democracy, right? So here are the questions. There are many radical, immoral people trying to ruin things. Our society ought to stop them. Society ought to stop them. 65% of Biden voters. Trump, 83%. 83%. If our society so wants, it is the duty of every true citizen to help eliminate the evil that poisons our country from within. 63% Biden voters. 78% Trump voters. Our country needs a powerful leader in order to destroy the radical and immoral currents prevailing in society today. 62% are Biden voters. But here's the kicker, and here's what I've been warning you about all along. You still don't believe me. 82% of Trump voters. And 43% strongly agree. Let me remind you, our country needs a powerful leader in order to destroy the radical and immoral countries prevailing in society today. Powerful leader. It would be better for America if whoever is president could take needed actions without being constrained by Congress or the courts. Now here they're faced with authoritarianism. They have to now struggle with the fact that this question is actually about authoritarianism. 46% of Biden voters say, yeah, we want a president who is not constrained by Congress. And 44% of Trump voters say, yeah, we don't want a president constrained by Congress or the courts. 44% of Trump voters, 46% of Biden. Now, you tell me that this country is heading in a good direction, no matter who wins. And finally, the situation in America is such that I would favor blue/red states seceding from the Union to form their own separate country. 41% of Biden voters, 52% of Trump voters. 52%. All right. I don't think we need to go through that again. All right. You can see from this poll clearly, both left and right are pro-censorship. Both left and right are pro a strong leader. Both left and right, a significant number of both left and right, are pro a president that ignores Congress and the courts. Both left and right, in my view, are ready for fascism. Now it's just a question of finding the right leader who can unite both left and right. Because on the programs, on the issues, they don't disagree. Not on, I'm sure there are cultural issues they disagree on. They disagree on abortion. But even there, I'm sure a clever demagogue could find a way to unite them. They disagree on race, probably. They disagree on, I don't know, but on the role of government, the need for more government intervention, the need for more government involvement, the need for more government spending, the need for more government involvement in education. They are united. They don't disagree. And this is what's so interesting about it, is what has happened is we've elevated the social issues to such an important place in our lives that that's the only thing that matters. Only thing that matters is your position on these social issues. Economics, we've given up on. Property rights, given up on. Free speech, we've given up on. It's your position on CRT and your position on abortion. Those are the only things that matter. Right wing is not limited government. Right wing is not small government. Right wing is big government with different social programs. Left wing is big government with different social programs. This is the case I've been making for years now. There is no difference. There is no legitimate right and left. Both are statist. The true spectrum, the political spectrum, the true political spectrum is individualism and collectivism. Collectivism, today's right and left are collectivists. You want to preserve the word right to represent individualism and limited government? Good luck to you. What's the point? Right means nothing. It's just a side. Right wing means the people who sat to the right in the first parliament just after the French Revolution. They were the right and the left. And historically, right often has meant those who defend individual rights and limited government. But it doesn't mean that anymore. It's gone. Forget it. You want to try to defend right against a culture that doesn't agree with you? It's hard enough to defend selfishness, important concept like being selfish, like egoism, like capitalism. Complete waste of time and energy and effort to try to convince people that Trump is not right-wing, that the Republican Party is not right-wing, that national conservatism is not right-wing. That's bizarre and ridiculous and a waste of time. You want to engage in that waste of time? Go for it. The right today is statist. And the right today contrasts itself with the left. That's who the right is. So yes, the fascists are right. And the right and the left are both statist, both collectivist. And if you want to fight them, you don't fight them as, oh no, you've got the word right wrong. You fight them as, on the basis of a morality of individualism, on a basis of limited government, on the basis of the Declaration and the Constitution, which are not right-wing documents. They're individualistic documents. They're limited government documents. They're capitalist documents. And that is the perspective we need to have. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of time and a lot of energy and go nowhere. David Brooks, a supposedly center-right guy, was part of the neocons. In a column, when was this? This was September 30th, so about a week ago. This is the title of the column. This is why we need to spend $4 trillion. David Brooks, a Republican, who often represents the right in debates. They present, like NPR will do a debate and they'll have somebody from the right, somebody from the left. David Brooks will be from the right. But this is right. This is from the right to argue that we need to spend $4 trillion. Why? Well, because the working class is angry. The working class is upset. We need to buy them off. We need to pay them off. Rich guys have gotten richer. CEOs have gotten more prosperous. The country is on the verge of civil war. Left and right are at their throat, each other's throats, and the only way to soothe this out, to get people to calm down, to get people to reflect, to get people maybe to be happy, is to give them $4 trillion. Resentment is on all sides. And indeed, the only way to stop people from voting for Trump is to stop them from feeling resentment against their economic fate by bribing them. So now, the specter of a civil war is encouraging some on the right to say, yeah, we need to buy off. We need to buy them off. And the way to buy them off is to print $4 trillion and to hand it out to lower middle class people. Give them vacations, give them time off. The world is going nuts. Nuts. And they're all now collectivists. They're all now statists. There is no party of individualism in America today. There are two parties, two perspectives that are dominantly statist. And yes, there might be individuals who are more on the individualist, on the way towards the individualist perspective, which I think objectivism is the ultimate. But they are few and far between. And they do not have political power. They do not have political influence. The political influence today is with the statists. Yes, Robert, I am categorized left and right as both collectivist. I have done it. That is how I categorize. That's how I deal with them. That's how I talk about them. Don't like it. There are other podcasts elsewhere you can go listen to. Now, one of the things that is happening today is that you've got the status of the right and status of the left hating each other. Not because they necessarily disagree on particular economic issues, but on these deep cultural issues, on where they find justification for their statism. The left finds it in victimhood, in Marxism, which is another form of victimhood. The right finds it in religion and in their own version of victimhood. But both not only are dedicated to a statist vision of America, but they are dedicated to hating the other side. In another poll, it found that Americans, quote, substantially exaggerate the extent to which members of the other party dehumanize, dislike, and disagree with them. Democrats and Republicans imagine almost twice as many of their political opponents as reality hold views they consider extreme. This perception gap gets worse with increased education and media consumption. So the more educated you are, the worse you see the other side. We're really building up to a Weimar Republic like the left is in the streets, the right is in the streets. Status on the left, status on the right, hating on each other. And it feels like that's where we're heading. It feels like that's what's happening around us. Now, the reason, and a bunch of people have written about this, and and about secession and what it would mean, but a lot of this, and I'm going to spend the rest of the show talking about this essay, a lot of this was really spawned by one essay that came out in the Washington Post, written by Robert Kagan, K-A-G-A-N, and I think it's really worth reading. It's called Our Constitutional Crisis is Already Here, where he lays out how he thinks this civil war or this is all going to kind of blow up. What is going to be the trigger that blows it up? And so I want to go over a little bit of the essay. Now, I warn you that this is going to trigger some of you for reasons that you will see in a minute. This essay will trigger some of you. But here is his scenario. Here's his perspective on the kind of constitutional crisis that's going to come about in this country that is going to basically lead us to a presidential election that is undecided or is decided, but that where the two parties completely disagree on that decision, that leads to riots and demonstrations in the streets, that leads to this feared, justifiably feared, civil war or civil breakdown or some kind of agreed secession that comes about. And here's a scenario. And this directly relates to Trump, so sorry, but we're going to be talking about Trump. So if you look at the last election, after Trump lost, he refused to acknowledge his loss. But it didn't really matter. There were enough people who stood up to him. There were enough people in the various levels of power, whether at local levels, governors of states or attorney generals in states or people responsible for elections at the state level who refused to succumb to Trump's attempts to undo the election, to reverse the outcome. And he was actively attempting to get state legislatures to vote to overturn elections at the states, to get attorney generals to do it, to get different people at the state level to overturn the state elections, all the way to January 6th, when he was trying to get the vice president of the United States to somehow overturn the election. But we just got the report today of January 3rd. We had a meeting with the Justice Department where one of the people in the Justice Department was suggesting firing the acting Justice Department head, appointing him, and that he would send out a letter to Republican legislatures at swing states. That letter would demand that they reverse the election result, and that basically the Justice Department would overturn the American election. Now, again, there were officials from the Justice Department there, a majority of them, who basically told Trump that if you do this, we will all, as a group, quit. Now, you can find documentation for this both in the Democratic report that came out today in the Senate. Okay, that's going to be biased, and yes, it makes it out, it's a little hysterical. But you can also find evidence of all of this in the Republican statement about what was going on. Trump was putting pressure on senior people within the Justice Department to find a way to overturn the election, only when they all told him, basically, as one voice, that they would all resign, they would all quit. If he did that, did he back off? Didn't stop him then from going after Pence and all of the stuff that happened there. Anyway, the only reason Trump basically didn't overturn the election, that is being about a coup in America, is because people within the Republican Party, people loyal to the Republican Party, at the state level and at the federal level, in the Justice Department and out of the Justice Department, including Vice President Pence, stood up to Trump and told him to go to hell. And that prevented, what could have been the most disastrous events in American history. I mean, those of you who claim during Trump's presidency he was not a totalitarian, his behavior post-election should have proved that I was right all along. But this is what Kagan is worried about. He says what's happening right now at the states level is that Trump is basically replacing all of those Republicans that stood up to him with his own people. He is making sure that the Republicans in Congress who stood up for him get voted out. The Republicans in Georgia who stood up to him, the Secretary of State, the election officials, get voted out and replaced by other Republicans loyal to Trump. He is making sure that Republicans in Arizona, Nevada, in Pennsylvania, across the country, the people who get elected are loyal not to America, not to the Constitution, not to the Declaration of Independence, but to Donald Trump. If he ever got elected again, he would make sure that he appointed into the Justice Department and elsewhere, not hacks, not people who somewhat agreed with him, not experts who once in a while agreed with him, but people that were 100% loyal. He's got 4 years to plan for this. But Kagan's issue is, imagine there's an election in 4 years, 2024. There will be an election. And in that election, let's say Biden or whoever the Democrat is, let's say it appears wins. Let's say that Trump is running against him, challenges the election. and now puts pressure on his appointees to reverse legitimate elections in his favor. So now, in spite of the fact that Biden maybe wins outright, because places like Georgia and Arizona and some other places maybe reverse the outcome in their state, there is a stalemate. On the one hand, it appears that Biden has won. On the other hand, because of these actions by state legislatures or by state officials, the legitimate results are being upturned. People go out in the street. Republicans out in the street under the Stop the Steal. But the Democrats are out now, convinced that it's being stolen from them. The Supreme Court is in a quandary, dominated by Republicans, but relatively rational. Let's say they side with Biden. But the state legislatures won't budge. You've now got a real constitutional problem. Who gets to decide? How long do you stay in limbo? On the other hand, if Trump wins, he puts in power his loyalists, not the kind of people he put before. There's no General Mathis anymore. There's no John Bolton anymore. There's none of these people. Only people who will be 100% loyal under all circumstances. And what is the result? The result is either way we're heading towards more authoritarianism, dramatically more authoritarianism, dramatically more power for the president, and potential for civil war, potential for real fighting in the streets. A true disaster. And look, I don't know how a civil war plays out. I don't want to really think about how a true civil war plays out. I'll be very happy I'm in Puerto Rico if that happens. And which side am I rooting for? Texas with its obnoxious, immoral abortion laws? Or New York with its obnoxious, immoral, mask mandates or vaccine mandates, whatever. It really is. It really is. Who do you want to win? And if they split, do you go to California where the jobs, the high-tech jobs, where some level, some things are free? You go to Texas, where economically maybe you're a little freer, just a little. But in other ways, you're less. You go to Florida, where do you go? We're creating a world, and part of the way we're creating this world is because of the way we're demonizing the other side and treating them as a tribe and treating ourselves as members of a tribe, that I don't know how we get out of. I highly recommend you read Robert Kagan's essay. I think it's excellent. I know you need a subscription to the Washington Post, but I'll put up the link on the chat here. But this is the essay. If not for nothing else, read it. It's worth reading it because this has created such a stir within the Republican world, within the conservative world. The head of the Claremont Institute. I closed that document. I had that document open a second ago. What was it called? David French wrote an essay called "The Whiff of Civil War in the Air." Let's see. This an interview with the head of the Claremont Institute. Claremont Institute is very Trumpist. The conservatives dreading and preparing for civil war. And in it, what is the head of the Claremont Institute, supposedly, the place that defends the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, what does he view as the biggest threats? The rise of big tech, identity politics. Okay, I agree on that, but biggest threats? The ideology of anti-racism and wokeness, identity politics. The notion the border is anachronistic and even racist, and that citizenship is global rather than national. That China is our main rival, the rise of big tech. That's it. Not the growth of the state, not government intervention in the economy, not regulations, not taxes, not all the regulatory alphabet agency soups, which he would have said was the major threat to American values 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Not anymore. Now it's all about these cultural issues. The rest doesn't matter. What else does he say? He says, even during the Civil War, I think we're more divided now than we were then. And in what sense were we more divided now? He says, as Lincoln said, we all prayed to the same God back then. We all believed in the same Constitution back then. We just deferred over the question of slavery. Just. There's a weird use of just. So then he's asked, well, how is it different, how is it different today? And this is the key, right? And I know you guys don't believe me how Christian the right is. Well, most of the founding fathers were Christians. They were radicals, to be sure. But there was much more consensus back then on what human nature is, on monotheism, broadly speaking, but really Christianity as well. Do you think America can hang together in 2021 without Christianity at its core? He says, I'm ambivalent about that question. This is the Claremont Institute, the representative of conservatism with regard to the founding fathers, the right, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution. I'm ambivalent about that question. I think it would be bad for America if that longtime Christian core disintegrated. The founders were pretty unanimous, with Washington leading the way, that the Constitution, listen to this, and you tell me, that the Constitution is really only fit for a Christian people. Now, he says, I would modify that a bit and say a majority Christian people could maintain that. But if you don't think your rights ultimately come from a creator, you're halfway down the road to modern confusion. So the solution of the right is Christianity, Christianity, Christianity. The answer to the CRT is Christianity. The answer to the growth of the state is Christianity. The answer to everything is Christianity. I'll repeat. The Constitution is really only fit for Christian people. I wonder if he includes like black evangelicals in that and Christian people who tend to be on the left. Do they count? And then when it comes to what the end game is going to be, the ideal end game would be to effect a realignment of our politics and take control of all three branches of government for a generation or two. Who's going to take control? The Trumpists. The goal would not be the reconquest of blue America, but rather the restoration of the constitutional regime that we think has been lost. We have to find some modus vivendi to go forward. If we're two Americas, one of the most perfect solutions might be a return to federalism. The feds laying off in many respects. Let red America be red and blue America be blue. It's obviously more complicated than that because even in red states, you have plenty of Democrats and vice versa. But we need to restore robust federalism, one that allows states much more leeway. We've gone much too far into the realm of federal control, arbitrariness, and outreach. All right. He says he worries about such a conflict. that this will become violent. The Civil War was terrible. It should be the thing we try to avoid almost at all costs. Almost at all costs. Yeah, but they don't, somebody said separation of state and religion, but they don't believe in separation of state and religion. All right, we're not going to get to the Pandora Papers, obviously, but yeah, we need to avoid a civil war almost at all costs. It would be a disaster, a real disaster. And I don't see any way to peacefully separate. I don't see any way to secede. I think a return for federalism is unlikely. For example, Donald Trump is not a federalist. I think it's much more likely that the federal government is going to grow and increase its power rather than decrease its power. Both left and right don't want to divest power to the states. None of them want that. So I think the only solution to unite the country is an authoritarian. Who finds the bridge. And authoritarians often do. Remember, and I'm not comparing anybody to Hitler, but Hitler got a lot of support from the left. A lot of support from the left. And from the right. And that's why, again, right and left are meaningless concepts. They don't mean anything. They never really have. They never really have. I mean, Ayn Rand said conservatism doesn't mean anything. Right and left are less meaningful than conservatism. They just don't mean anything anymore. All right. You can fight for them if you want. You can try to whatever, but they don't mean anything. All right, we're going to go to the Super Chat. That was a long monologue, so a lot of stuff. All right. Jackson can split that into two videos. I think one on the Zuckerberg and one on the Civil War, and I think, well, he'll have his short videos pretty easily. Let's see. We got a bunch of Super Chats. We're also still $200 away from our goal. So I'm going to go over the Super Chat, but please consider over the next, 30 minutes while I'm answering these different questions, how you can support the Yaron Brook show and get us to the $600 per show so that we can keep the marketing and keep the engagement and keep the number of shows where we have them today. So, show support so we're motivated to keep this going. Okay, we have a $20 question there, another couple of $20. Oh, there's a $50. Okay. So I'm going to start with $50 questions. Of course, you can ask a $50 question. Any one of you can ask a $50 questions. Go for it. That'll get us to the $600 goal very, very quickly. Phil writes, I was listening to Yeonmi Park today, who's on YouTube having defected from North Korea. Yes, I know Park. I've seen her several times. She's an impressive young lady. What a ghastly eye-opener. Maybe the hates of what America stood for and could again, the haters of what America stood for could again, and in Britain, should listen to her before hailing collectivism as an ideal. Yes. I mean, Yeonmi Park is amazing, smart, articulate, unbelievably courageous. Her story of escaping from North Korea is stunning, and she's a real hero, a real hero. And yeah, I mean, I wish people would listen to her and realize the implications of what she's talking about. Yes, America's not moving to becoming North Korea tomorrow, but that's the general direction we're heading in unless we reverse course. All right, that was a 50-pound question. Ian has a $50 one. This is for laying out how close we came to Trump's coup working. I don't think it would have worked, because I think the Supreme Court would have reversed it. But that is pretty dicey, relying on the Supreme Court at the last minute to reverse something. And even then, everybody would have lined up with the Supreme Court? It's just not clear. Ian goes on to say, I don't understand how people like Andrew Bernstein can claim Trump is good, given that he tried to steal the election, and still says that Pence should have thrown out the votes. I mean, I think Andy and several other people truly believe that the election was stolen. I think with no evidence. I think completely irrationally. But that is the justification for Trump's action, that the voting was rigged and that the election was stolen. Now, again, I don't think they have any basis for that. No evidence. No evidence has been presented. So that just shifts the irrationality away from one issue to another. It's sad to see people holding that view and supporting that view. And a number of people who I used to respect holding that view and supporting that view. I mean, I don't know what happened to the world once Trump came on the scene. The world got messed up, seriously messed up, when Trump came on the scene. I mean, it's not Trump's fault because he just capitalized on something that was happening anyway, but the world went upside down. And I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't understand how people changed the way they did, but they really, really did. They really, really, really did. Superkill, thank you for the contribution. Thank you for supporting the show and getting us a little closer to the $600 mark. But we're going to have to get some serious help from you guys to get to the $600 mark. So I'm hoping some of you are ready to contribute to Run Book Show in the next few minutes to get us there quickly. Okay, Michael asks, I suspect there will be a civil war. This is the one you talk after the dollar collapses, followed by quasi-fascist takeover. Now, I agree about the quasi-fascist takeover. I think that is in our future. That at the end of the day, where we're heading is towards some form of fascism. Whether it's a totalitarian fascism or a softer form of fascism, we're going to look a lot more like China than China's going to look like us when we come out on the other side of whatever we're in right now. So definitely fascism. Yes, the fascism could be ignited by a dollar collapsing. It could be ignited by an obvious coup attempt by, let's say, Trump or by Biden or by whoever, but probably by Trump. It could be ignited just by the ramping up of tensions and frustrations and, who knows, a riot where police shoot people, something goes amiss. I mean, think about World War I, started almost by accident, by the killing of a crown prince. And nobody could tell that's the outcome of that would be one of the deadliest armed conflicts in human history. So a lot of things could ignite the Civil War, this disaster, this fascism, or fascist expansion in the United States. A lot different things that could happen to a lot of different things. Thank you, Daniel. Really appreciate that. Let's see. I'm going to go to a $20 question. Religion teaches selflessness. Do you think that religion is in essence evil? I mean, I'll say this. Religion is a false philosophy, a false ideology, and it preaches in ethics evil. That is, religious ethics is evil. It is altruism. And it preaches evil in epistemology. Rely on faith, rely on a book, don't rely on your mind. Pray, miracles happen. That's what shapes the world. All of that is an evil ideology that is destructive to human life, destroys human life. And in that sense, yes, religion is evil. I don't think everybody who is religious is evil. I certainly think the people who are preach it, who are intellectuals of it, who are committed to it, are evading and immoral. Certainly people like the Pope are. You know, you saw the recent information coming out of, was it France? 330,000 children abused by Catholic priests. And all of this covered up for decades by the church. I can't remember, by year it was 7,500 children, something like that, being abused by priests, moral symbols. How anybody can stay a Catholic in this world is beyond conception to me. It's so bizarre to claim that you hold a philosophy of love and tolerate an organization that facilitates the abuse of children is just disgusting. Just disgusting. Unthinkable. Totally unthinkable. And then people continue to do this. All right, let's see. Shazbot, if the country is split into three parts, which one gets the nukes? Well, they all have nukes. They all have nukes. There's no question, right? Nukes are spread out around the country. I think part of any kind of deal, part of a civil war, a big chunk of the civil war will be how does the military swing into where and who controls those nukes. But you can imagine that all parts of the country would have nukes. I think there are enough nukes and they're spread out for everybody to have some, which is pretty spooky. Shazbot, if the people vote for fascism, is it fascism or is it democracy? Well, democracy often leads to fascism. Look at Nazi Germany. It came from democratic rule, came out of democratic rule. Although very few people voted for Nazis, but a democratic process brought Hitler to the premiership and allowed him ultimately to take over all the institutions. So fascism could be voted in democratically. Let's see more $20 questions. There we go. Suppose it comes to an eventual civil war between two shades of evil. What are we to do? Where would there be to go? I don't know. I'm in Puerto Rico. I don't know where Puerto Rico falls in this. Maybe it declares independence. I don't know. But at least I'm not on the mainland to suffer the actual violence. I doubt there'd be violence here. But I don't know where you go. It depends on how those shades of evil manifest themselves, in what way they express themselves. Whoops, what did I just do? I don't know what I just did. Edit, undo, paste. All right. It's very hard to tell what the right action will be in that circumstances. Let's really hope we don't get there. Oh, John just came in with a $50. Thank you, John. Really appreciate it. John says, thank you for revealing to us what Trump was all about. You had him nailed from the start. I am shocked at how many seemingly intelligent people I know are loyal to him in spite of all the evidence. Thank you, John. I really, really appreciate that, especially coming from you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's truly shocking, the extent to which people buy into the Trump worldview and the Trump personality more than anything else, how much they buy into him as a person, right? All right, we're about 120 short. That's very doable. Even if we're only going to go 10, 15 minutes from now, we should be able to raise $120 in the next, by the time we finish, get us to $600 so that Ali can do her victory dance. DDV shows ask, I saw this button with the $sign on it. I clicked it, and it's nice knowing I'll get $20 from YouTube. Thank you. Whoops. Thank you, DDV. Really appreciate the support. Thank you. John says, great show you're on. Thank you again, John. Charles, it seems that modern objectivist places Lincoln at the center of the political philosophy for America. This is a mistake. This is neoconservative approach. Federalism is the constitutional approach. I don't know that Lincoln was not a Federalist. The fact that you fight against slavery is not a violation of federalism. What is strong in Lincoln are two things. One is Lincoln's understanding that the Declaration of Independence was the key to understanding the Constitution. I wish people in the Supreme Court understood this. So Lincoln understood that. That's enough. And then that he understood that the Union could not survive slavery and that slavery was an evil institution that had to be eradicated for America to survive. And that was a cause worthy of war. And I agree with Lincoln. I agree with Lincoln. Now, Lincoln made a lot of mistakes. I don't agree with everything Lincoln made. But the idea that modern objectivist places Lincoln at the center of their political philosophy is bullshit. We place James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams at the center of our political, Washington. Lincoln was just one of the few presidents who understood that founding philosophy. Yeah. Lincoln's a tyrant. Why? Because he freed slaves? Is that why he's a tyrant? Lincoln made a lot of mistakes as president. The income tax, the draft, huge mistakes. But he had huge virtues. You got to measure both. And if you only see the errors and you don't see the virtues, then you're not being objective. And I don't put him at the center of my political philosophy. I put Ayn Rand at the center of my political philosophy. So it's just a weird and a false misrepresentation of the objectivist position on politics. But absolutely, I am pro-Civil War. If that's a sin, I'm guilty of that sin. And I know many libertarians. I've sat with libertarians who are anti the War of Independence. I mean, Great Britain wasn't that bad. Why go to war? We're pacifists. We should never go to war. I know I am the ignorant one. Steven points out how ignorant I am about Lincoln. That's okay. I'm ignorant about Trump. I'm ignorant about Lincoln. I'm ignorant about the right. I'm ignorant about the Middle East. I'm ignorant about Iran. I'm ignorant about, it's a long list. A long list of the things that people who disagree with me claim that I'm ignorant of. That's okay. 600 people died who didn't have to. It turns out they did have to. Slavery could not last. Every day it lasted was an abomination. Every day it lasted. Hundreds of thousands of people under the whip. How about you being under the whip and saying, it won't last. Maybe my grandchildren won't be slaves. God, that is such a disgusting attitude. Sorry, zombie. This is not meant to insult you, but it's a disgusting attitude. They're your countrymen. It's your country under your constitution, and you are willing to tolerate slavery? It's an abomination. There had to be a civil war because there had to be a stand against this abomination. Imagine being a slave and saying, it'll pass. Only Jews do that. It'll pass. That was supposed to be a joke. The UK ended slavery without a war? Yes. You couldn't have ended slavery without a war in the US, it turns out. Thank you, Best Fed Hank. Thank you, Adam. Adam says, together you guys have got us over $600. Maybe my final anger there pushed some people over. Are you familiar with very gradual and peaceful breakup of the Roman Empire into Eastern and Western halves? Yes, I mean, but a breakup that was indeed peaceful, but also represented the end. It represented the end of Rome. It represented, in many respects, the end of civilization, while the Byzantine Empire remained, I guess, a kind of a Christian Roman a small empire. It had lost civilization to a large extent. It had lost prosperity. It had lost knowledge. It had lost technology. And it lost a lot of the freedom that existed under Rome, to the extent that there was freedom. So yes, you can have a slow, gradual breakup. You had a slow, gradual breakup, but it still represented the end of civilization. I don't know if that's possible today. And I'm curious what you guys think. So I think the reason it was possible back then, because of distances. To get from Rome to Constantinople, it was far. The barbarians could invade Rome, but Constantinople, it was a different. It was hard. It's somewhere else. It was not the same barbarians who constantly attacked Constantinople and knocked it, weakened it dramatically. Today, everything is right next door. Everything is instant. And in that sense, I don't know that a gradual separation can happen. I think it has to be, it will ultimately be quick. Whether it's violent or not, I don't know. But it will be quick. It will be decided upon and done, whether through violence or whether through some kind of negotiation. The provinces of Rome, the governors started paying less and less attention to central government, and central government, it was too much of a hassle to go and send the military there. And this separation kind of could happen in ways that were, the way it happened is the emperor moved to Constantinople and moved to somewhere else, but and slowly basically let the old part of Rome just fall apart. I don't know that could happen today. Maybe. I just don't see it. All right, two last $20 questions. Morelli asks, Scary Tones, looking forward to seeing you at the debate on Tuesday. Yes. The disappointing thing about the debate on Tuesday, sorry guys, buy one $19.99 and get one for a friend too. Thank you, John Doe. Appreciate that. The disappointing thing about the debate on Tuesday, and there will be debate, it will be with Richard Wolff, and will be Socialism, Capitalism, and you're all encouraged to come at the University of Pennsylvania. I hope for a large audience. I hope many of you are there, because I'm sure his side will bring out his people. Is that he will not be there live. Because of COVID, his doctor advised him not to travel. So he will be there by Zoom, and I will be there live. So I guess that gives me an advantage or not. I don't know. But anyway, it should be a interesting debate, if nothing else. All right, let's do the $5 and $10 questions quickly. Best friend Hank, what's your thought on Bernie Sanders saying 2 people are stepping on the wants of 48? I think we have 2 courageous people in the Democratic Party who are, yes, stepping on the wants of 48. That's the representational government that we have. That's, by the way, how democracies work, the democracies that Bernie Sanders believes in. Sometimes a minority can hold back a majority within a party, but it's not even 2 people. It actually is 52 people. It turns out that the 2 people he's talking about agree with the Republicans on these issues, at least to some extent. So it's not 2 people stepping on the wants of 48. It's 52 people stepping on the wants of 48. Tough, Bernie. I admire Manchin and the woman from Arizona whose name I have a hard time pronouncing. Travis says, I joined the OSC as an auditor this week. Excellent. Excellent. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Let us know. Hunter says, never read Rand before. Just got back from the store with the fountain and Atlas shrugged. Yes. Victory. My girl and I will be there Tuesday for the debate too. Look forward to meeting you guys. But read your Ayn Rand, much more important than the debate. How does this poll square with the one you reviewed a few days ago, which reflected a less authoritarian sentiment? Is it possible we're more likely to see the more inflammatory polls? I think that I think it depends on how the questions are asked. I think people are so anti-intellectual, so wishy-washy, so easily moved that if the tone of the questionnaire is them versus us, they get stiff backs and they suddenly become, oh, it's us, it's our tribe. But if the poll is just about ideas, they're much less likely to be authoritarian. Look, the right's authoritarian tendency primarily comes out in their hatred of the left. And I have to say that the left's authoritarian tendency, to a large extent, comes out in its response to the right. Oh, guys, liking is being slow today. So if you like the show, if you like any of the show, just press the like button. Really helps the algorithm, really helps get the show out there and spread the word. So please press the like button if you like the show. And don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, to subscribe and to become a supporter. You can do so on yaronbrookshow.com/support. Patreon or Subscribe Star. Okay, 3 final questions. David, not on subject, but what's the difference between spiritualism and mysticism? Oh, God. I'm not sure. Spiritualism is a form of mysticism that believes in a particular, in a variety of different spirits. Spiritualism is not necessarily affiliated with religion. It's a kind of religion in and of itself, or category of religions. So I think mysticism is the broader category in which spiritualism is a subcategory. Florida Nick, any update on Amos Palos coming to Audible? No, sorry. I just don't know anything new. Bree says the child abuse of the left is scaring them with global warming, race, and gender. They are set on stealing all hope of the future from millions of kids. The church and the schools are censored. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I mean, the left is committing a different kind of child abuse, but that doesn't justify the church's child abuse. I think it's a huge mistake when reports about the Catholic child abuse come out to say, but the public schools do it, and Boy Scouts do it, and the left does it in these things, because that does not give enough weight and seriousness to the evil committed by the Catholic Church. And before you pivot to saying, yeah, the left is evil too, you've got to first establish unequivocally the extent to which the church is complicit in evil in this regard. YouTube wouldn't let me say evil. That's weird. All right, I'm saying evil. YouTube, I'm saying evil. Are you going to do something about it? We'll see. All right, guys, have a great rest of the week. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. I will see you on Saturday and Sunday. Pretty sure we'll have shows on Saturday and Sunday. Still a lot of topics on my list of topics. We have to do the role of the military in a free society. I just got a new sponsored show, which we're going to do. I want to do another Yaron's Rules for Life on creativity and Steve Jobs. And then there's wokeism in the academy. There is CRT, a new name for CRT. CRT is no longer the correct abbreviation of the nutty ideology of the left. There's a new one. So we'll talk about the new name. You notice they keep changing. Global warming, climate change. They keep changing. They keep looking for something that'll catch on, and they can deceive us into holding on. So the new one is not CRT. We'll get to what it is. It's D something something. DEI, I think. But we'll get to it. All right, guys.